When I was probably in preschool, I remember my mom sitting me down after dinner and we would like write storyboards together, but it was me in handle of like creating the whole story and like drawing.
I was really liked, putting things together in like different or interesting ways. It was something I was always fortunate to be encouraged to do.
I had like kind of a low period where I didn't produce very much, and I think I got back into it around high school, started writing kind of different stuff, tried my hand at poetry, and found some solace in it.
It's rough.
As a creative artist, I find mental illness sometimes could be like an inspiration to help other people that suffer through the same thing, and I know how it feels like, but it also is kind of an interruption almost from me keeping up with my motivations and doing the stuff that I like.
Art hasn't actually been a great outlet for my depression. And I think this is actually like a really big stereotype of mental illness, is that it makes you more creative, or that it kind of makes you more sensitive and more like attuned to the world. But depression has never made me more creative.
To have that constant pressure that you need to live up to that expectation, I think just breeds these productions where it's just like overly simplified or sensationalized, because you want to represent like the tortured artist rather than like some sort of even-handed representation of what you might be going through or what somebody else might be going through.
Something like depression in particular, it like nukes any kind of drive you would have to like be creative. Like I couldn't even shower.
For a lot of artists specifically who suffer from mental health issues, you need to reflect the reality that you live. And I think art is a great medium for that, because it encourages you to reach outside yourself and kind of share a story that often is stigmatized, that often is looked down upon, but it's honest. It's your truth.
When I'm not actively clinically depressed, art has helped me to, I guess, maybe convey or articulate some of the things that I feel, or the way that I perceive the world when I'm mentally ill.
When you're talking about the kinds of art that are very political, that you're going to be sharing with the public, even if you're writing it personally, I like to have that catharsis in it, and that means that you do have to work for that. You do have to throw yourself into it, and that can be a painful process sometimes.
I just said I don't find art cathartic for my mental illness, but I do find art to be really kind of like reading. I find it to be really like soothing, and it's soothing in a challenging way. I really like to feel like challenged. I think, certain types of pain, like, the pain of a yoga class, or the pain of getting a tattoo, or the pain of working through a really challenging idea, or the pain of really trying to figure out how to get these colors right. I really like that kind of pain. I think it's really meditative. I think it's really great to be pushing yourself.
So I'm experimenting with a lot of lights and colors on my canvases. I guess it's more like of a mood or a feeling that colors or shapes that give you. I find painting, especially acrylic or oil painting, very therapeutic. The whole process of bringing an object into a 2D canvas and the whole brush strokes, I find that very therapeutic. So I would go for painting whenever I'm stressed or when I don't feel like myself.
Where an artist is at in their life impacts their art, and you can't really separate, or I don't believe you can separate the artist from the art.
I have a lot of pet peeves with how mental illness is portrayed. I have a lot of pet peeves with how I used to think of mental illness.
Growing up in an Asian household, I've been told that mental health was a phase, that it is something that you will go through in high school or middle school, and you'll get over it when you're older, or you're just being moody, which is not. And it really stops you from trying to know yourself better or asking for help because you think inside your head, oh, this is a phase, it will go away.
The major problem that I have specifically with pop art, like popular art, is that mental illness and mental health issues are often used as a plot point or as a device rather than as a part of the character or as part of an experience.
You know, I really love how Kanye West deals with mental illness in his art. And I think it's because he plays with this idea that he's, you know, crazy or unhinged. I like that he doesn't hide the difficult parts of mental illness. That, you know, that's what I really loved about I Thought About Killing You as a song, is that he's like, you know, he's not hiding the gross parts of it.
His name is Ren Hang. He is a photographer. He was a photographer in Hong Kong. He died last year from suicide. But his artworks are very obscure, but very beautiful. And the main subject that he touches on is sex or nudity, which is very taboo in China or Hong Kong. So, but he still continued to stick with his own work, which I find very inspiring. For me, it's almost like disobeying my parents and just it's doing self-expression, knowing that I know how I feel and I want to help others that feel this way.
Persevering Wallflower is probably the first one that jumps to my mind when I think about mental illness specifically, because it's mentioned very specifically in the movie. They leave parts to the imagination that should be left to the imagination, and then they really capitalize on the parts that people need to see. So they don't really show the trauma that happens, for instance. And so it becomes more of a dialogue, and it doesn't become a sensationalized bit that's being used for the Hollywood circus.
The art that I really like to consume in terms of how they talk about mental illness is generally art that doesn't talk down to mental illness.
So just having more accurate representations of mental illness and mental health issues in like the art sphere would make a huge difference.
I think what Triptych really was a big part of is how do I come across the people I love when I'm this way? What is that kind of relationship I'm having? What am I capable of doing? How do I come across when, you know, I really am in so much pain that I can't be empathetic? I think when you put in something like depression or mental illness, it amplifies relationship problems. One of the fears and anxieties I have when I'm especially depressed is that I fear that people don't love me.
Principally and foremost, it's about two people who love each other, but nonetheless their relationship totally falls apart for reasons that are not entirely anyone's fault.
So that painting I drew 2 years ago when I had a heartbreak from a relationship, not exactly about love, but more just in a broad sense of interactions and other relationship that you have throughout your life. And when I was young, I think I was very pure and I didn't know what greed was or jealousy was. And I find some people have the same experience as I do, and when they do experience hurt or scarred from unexpected people around you. Mm-hmm. So that painting is mostly my ego almost trying to say, protect your heart, follow your soul.
It's one of the reasons I think that there's still so much stigma around mental illness, or this self-reinforcing loop of stigma, is that people can't get help. So then they over-rely on their romantic partners.
I think the most important form of mental health advocacy is empathy. Empathy is advocacy.
People's darkest hours all look very different. I mean, the only thing I could really say is that you'll survive this. It's not fun. It requires work. It requires a certain amount of, wanting to get better. But, it's survivable.
Things change. You change, the situation changes, the people around you will change.
You have to think in a different direction sometimes, even though it's hard.
You have to just take a new direction and then go with it. And I know it's not that easy. Like, recovery is not that easy. Changing schemas, like changing your neurology, is not that easy. But trying something new and shifting your perspective can help so much in, reaching new heights, or reaching just different heights, or getting out of a dark place.
You have my permission to care about yourself enough to get help and survive.
A lot of people want to be involved with bigger organizations, or they want to volunteer and they want to do the hands-on work, and I think that's fantastic. But if you're someone who can't do that, that's okay. Just be good to the people in your life, support the people in your life, and do your best to make other people's days better. And that goes such a long way, because that can completely change how somebody else's day goes. And it's just, honestly, at the end of the day, small acts of kindness are radical acts, which is inspirational.
Most beautiful thoughts are always besides the darkest.